Have you ever wondered how someone can turn a lifetime of challenges into an immortal legacy? Joshua, a man who began his journey as a servant, ended up as the great leader who led an entire nation to conquer the Promised Land. But the truth that no one tells you is that Joshua didn't win his battles with just a sword. He triumphed with something far more powerful: his unwavering faith. And it was this faith that allowed him to achieve feats that still intrigue those who dare to study his story today. Imagine being responsible for bringing down the walls of an entire city without even touching them. Sounds impossible, right? That's where Joshua's story stands out. What he discovered, and what few people understand, is that true victory comes from trusting in something greater, even when everything seems to be against you. And that's exactly what you'll uncover in this journey. Joshua, from the tribe of Ephraim, stood out among the Israelites not by mere coincidence, but by the depth of his character and faith. He was not just a bystander during the 40-year desert journey. He became an influential figure. Early on, Joshua proved to be a man of both courage and wisdom. He wasn't one to shrink back from a challenge, and when others doubted, he stepped forward, believing in God's promises. This mindset shaped him into the leader he would become, guiding a generation that would one day conquer the Promised Land. His leadership wasn't just about authority. It was about vision. He saw beyond the present struggles and kept his focus on God's ultimate plan. While many stumbled in their faith, Joshua's strength lay in his unwavering belief that God would deliver. It was this certainty that set him apart from the crowd. Imagine being in a situation where everyone around you is filled with doubt. Joshua was the one who stood firm, reminding others of the bigger picture. In today's world, it's like being the voice of reason when everyone else is overwhelmed with panic. Joshua's journey also shows us that leadership isn't about having all the answers, but about trusting the process and those guiding you. In your own life, think of times when things seemed uncertain. How often do we lose sight of the goal because we get caught up in the moment? Like Joshua, having a firm belief in something greater can be the anchor that keeps you steady. Just as he learned, there's value in patience and persistence, especially when you're navigating unfamiliar terrain. Joshua wasn't just known for his physical prowess on the battlefield. His reputation was built on something far more substantial: his unwavering faith. While others may have been skilled with the sword, it was Joshua's deep connection to God that made him truly formidable. His ability to remain calm under immense pressure was remarkable. Picture yourself in a moment of complete chaos, where everything around you seems to be falling apart. Most would panic, but Joshua knew that his strength didn't come from human ability alone. It was his faith that allowed him to rise above, and that's a lesson we can all carry with us today. In a world where we're often told that brute strength or sheer intelligence is the key to success, Joshua's story teaches something entirely different. His victories weren't just about strategy, they were about his relationship with God. Think of it this way: even the best warrior needs guidance, a compass pointing them in the right direction. For Joshua, that compass was his faith. He didn't rely solely on his own understanding, but sought God's wisdom in every decision he made. This trust in divine guidance is what allowed him to achieve feats that others could only dream of. Moreover, Joshua's calm under pressure wasn't just for his own benefit, it inspired those around him. Imagine being a soldier under his command, witnessing how he held fast in the face of insurmountable odds. It wasn't just his sword that gave the Israelites confidence, it was his steady belief that God would deliver them. That kind of faith, unshaken by fear, can be a beacon for others, leading them to act with similar courage. It's a reminder that true leadership is about more than the battles you fight. It's about the belief you carry into those battles. In today's fast-paced, high-stress environment, Joshua's approach is one we can all learn from. How often do we let fear dictate our actions? When faced with a difficult situation, it's easy to let doubt creep in. But Joshua shows us that faith, not fear, should guide our steps. And just like him, when you trust in something greater than yourself, you can find the calm in the storm, even when the odds are stacked against you. Joshua's reliance on God also highlights the importance of seeking guidance beyond our own understanding. Sometimes, life throws challenges our way that we simply don't have the answers for. But like Joshua, when we lean on faith, we can find the clarity we need to move forward. Whether it's in your career, relationships, or personal struggles, the key is remembering that you don't have to go it alone. There's always a source of strength available to you, just as it was for Joshua. And let's not forget, Joshua's faith wasn't blind. He took action. He prepared, strategized, and fought with all his might, but he did so knowing that the outcome wasn't entirely in his hands. That balance between faith and action is what made him such a powerful figure. He didn't just sit back and wait for things to happen. He partnered with God, taking the steps necessary while trusting the results to divine intervention. This is a critical lesson for anyone looking to make a real impact. Faith and effort go hand in hand. In your own life, consider how you can apply Joshua's mindset. Are there areas where you've been trying to rely solely on your own strength? What would happen if you invited faith into the equation, trusting that even when things don't make sense, there's a plan in place for you? Joshua's story challenges us to think bigger, to see beyond the immediate and trust in the long-term process. This balance between strength and faith is something many of us struggle with, especially in a world that often tells us to do it all ourselves. But Joshua's life is a testament to the fact that true power comes from knowing when to lean on something greater than yourself. As you face your own battles, remember Joshua's example, a warrior at heart, but a man of deep faith above all else. Joshua's life didn't just impact the people of his time. His legacy became a source of inspiration for generations to come. He was admired by the young and the old alike, a rare feat for any leader. His ability to draw strength from adversity made him a living example of faith in action. Even in the toughest moments, Joshua's unwavering trust in God fueled his resilience, and this was something that spoke volumes to everyone around him. Picture a time when the Israelites felt defeated, their faith hanging by a thread. Joshua's steadfastness reminded them that hope was never lost. But what was it about Joshua that made him such a beacon of hope? It wasn't just his victories on the battlefield. It was the way he carried himself through every challenge. Joshua didn't just react to problems. He faced them head-on with a quiet confidence that came from his deep relationship with God. Imagine living your life with that kind of assurance, knowing that no matter what comes your way, there's a greater plan unfolding. Joshua embodied this mindset, and his life shows us that it's possible to inspire others simply by walking in faith. Joshua's story reminds us that true leadership is about more than personal success. It's about lifting others up. The youth looked up to him, not because he was perfect, but because he was real. He didn't shy away from hardship or pretend to have all the answers, but he stayed the course, showing that faith wasn't just for the easy moments, it was for the storms too. This lesson resonates today, where many are searching for someone to guide them through life's uncertainties. Joshua's example is one we can all follow, reminding us to stay grounded in our beliefs, even when the world around us is shaking. For the elders, Joshua's life was a reminder that faith isn't something you outgrow. Even as a seasoned warrior, he never stopped depending on God. His reliance on divine wisdom showed that no matter how experienced or accomplished you become, there's always more to learn and trust in. This approach resonates deeply with anyone who's been through life's battles and still seeks direction. It's a reminder that faith isn't just a tool for the young or inexperienced. It's a lifelong companion, guiding you through every season of life. One of the most practical takeaways from Joshua's life is his ability to persevere. When faced with adversity, he didn't fold, he pressed forward. In today's world, perseverance is a trait that seems harder and harder to come by, especially when the pressures of life feel overwhelming. But Joshua's story shows that when you have a strong foundation in faith, you can keep moving forward, even when the odds seem stacked against you. His example encourages us to develop that same tenacity, to not give up when things get tough, but to draw strength from something deeper. Joshua's influence didn't fade with time. In fact, it only grew. As the younger generation observed his unwavering commitment, they too began to adopt his mindset. His life wasn't just a story of personal triumph. It was a blueprint for others to follow. Today, we can look at Joshua's life and ask ourselves, how can we be that kind of example for the people around us? Whether it's in our families, workplaces, or communities, the way we live our lives can inspire others to hold on to hope, even when life feels uncertain. It's also worth noting that Joshua's leadership wasn't just about leading in moments of glory. He led through the hard times as well. In those moments when others felt like giving up, Joshua was the one who kept going. His faith in God gave him a strength that went beyond physical ability or mental toughness. It was a strength that came from knowing that he wasn't fighting these battles alone. This is a lesson we can all apply to our own lives. When things get tough, it's not about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about staying grounded in what you believe. Joshua's story challenges us to think about the legacy we're building. Are we living in a way that inspires others to persevere, to keep faith? and to trust in something bigger than themselves? It's a question worth asking because, like Joshua, the way we live today can leave a lasting impact on those who come after us. His life serves as a powerful reminder that faith isn't just for the present moment. It's something that can shape the future for generations to come. One of the most striking qualities of Joshua was his ability to balance strength with compassion. As a military leader, he was undoubtedly strong, both physically and mentally. But what set him apart was his heart. Joshua wasn't just a warrior. He was a leader who cared deeply for his people. He listened to their needs, understood their struggles, and led with empathy. This balance between toughness and tenderness is rare, and it's something we can all learn from. Being strong doesn't mean being hard. Sometimes, true strength is shown through kindness and understanding. Joshua's leadership style was a perfect blend of these two qualities. On one hand, he led the Israelites through intense battles, making difficult decisions and executing strategies that required a firm hand. On the other hand, he never lost sight of the people he was leading. He wasn't distant or cold. He was approachable. Imagine being a leader today, where the pressures to succeed are high. Joshua shows us that it's possible to be firm and effective, without losing touch with those who rely on you. Compassionate leadership doesn't just win battles, it wins hearts. Think about the moments in your own life where you've needed to balance these two qualities. Whether in a professional setting or personal relationships, there's often a delicate line between being strong and being compassionate. Joshua walked this line effortlessly, showing us that true leadership requires both. When you're making tough decisions, do you consider how those decisions will affect others? Joshua did. He cared about the well-being of his people, and that made him not just a respected leader, but a beloved one. It's easy to focus on strength, especially in a world that often values power and dominance. But Joshua reminds us that compassion is equally important. Strength without compassion can lead to isolation, but when the two are combined, it creates a leader who is not only powerful but also deeply connected to those they lead. This balance is what made Joshua so effective. He wasn't just commanding troops, he was guiding a nation, and he did so with a heart that understood their fears, their hopes, and their struggles. In today's world, we often see leaders who are either too tough or too soft. Joshua's life shows us that the most successful leaders are those who can adapt to the needs of their people. Sometimes, that means being strong and standing firm in the face of opposition. Other times, it means being compassionate, listening, and offering support. This adaptability is what made Joshua so unique. He didn't rely on one style of leadership. He used both strength and compassion as tools to lead effectively. One of the most practical ways we can apply Joshua's example is by learning to listen. Compassion starts with understanding, and you can't understand others if you're not willing to listen. Joshua was a leader who listened to his people. He didn't make decisions in a vacuum. He considered the needs and desires of those he was leading. In your own life, whether at work, in your family, or in your community, taking the time to listen can make all the difference. It shows that you care, and it strengthens the bond between you and those you lead. Joshua also teaches us that compassion doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger. When people know that you care about them, they're more likely to follow you, trust you, and fight alongside you. This is a lesson for anyone in a position of leadership. Whether you're managing a team, raising a family, or leading a group, showing compassion can inspire loyalty and trust. Joshua's life is proof that you can be both strong and kind, and that this combination is what makes a leader truly great. In moments of conflict or challenge, we often feel the need to choose between being tough or being caring. Joshua shows us that we don't have to choose. We can be both. We can face challenges head-on, make difficult decisions, and still lead with compassion. This is what makes his story so powerful. It's not just about his victories on the battlefield, but about the way he led his people through those battles. He was strong when he needed to be, but he was always compassionate, always caring, always connected to the people he led. The conquest of Jericho is one of the most iconic moments in Joshua's leadership, not just because of the victory itself, but because of how it happened. Joshua led the Israelites into battle with a plan that defied conventional wisdom. Imagine being told that to conquer a fortified city, you would need to march around it for 7 days, blowing trumpets and shouting instead of using weapons. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? But Joshua trusted in God's instructions, even when they didn't make logical sense. This story teaches us that sometimes, Success comes from following a path that seems unusual or even irrational. Joshua's approach to Jericho wasn't about physical might, it was about faith and obedience. He could have questioned God's plan, could have asked for a more straightforward strategy, but he didn't. He understood that true leadership sometimes means stepping out in faith, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Think about moments in your own life where you've faced challenges that didn't make sense on the surface. How often do we try to solve problems through sheer effort, when sometimes what's needed is trust in a higher plan? The Battle of Jericho shows us that victory doesn't always come through the obvious means. It wasn't Joshua's military skill that brought the walls down, it was his faith. The lesson here is that there are times in life where the usual strategies won't work. Whether you're facing personal obstacles or professional challenges, sometimes you need to approach them from a completely different angle, one that might seem strange to others but makes sense when viewed through the lens of faith. Imagine the Israelites, walking around Jericho day after day, likely feeling a bit foolish. It's easy to picture the doubt creeping into their minds. But Joshua kept them focused. He reminded them that this wasn't just a test of their endurance, it was a test of their faith. This story resonates deeply with anyone who's ever felt like they were putting in effort without seeing immediate results. It reminds us that persistence, combined with faith, can break down the toughest walls in our lives. And when the walls of Jericho finally fell, it wasn't just a victory for the Israelites, it was a testament to the power of obedience. Joshua's willingness to follow God's instructions, even when they seemed nonsensical, led to one of the greatest triumphs in biblical history. This teaches us that faith without action is incomplete. Joshua didn't just sit back and hope for the best, he acted on his faith. He led the Israelites in an unconventional battle strategy because he knew that victory wasn't in his hands alone. It was a partnership between his actions and God's plan. In your own life, think about the walls you face, those seemingly insurmountable challenges that feel impossible to overcome. Joshua's story encourages us to look at those walls differently. Instead of relying solely on our own strength or understanding, what would happen if we trusted in a greater plan? Sometimes, the breakthrough doesn't come through more effort, but through faith and perseverance. Joshua's example challenges us to think beyond the obvious and trust that sometimes, the most unlikely path is the one that leads to victory. The fall of Jericho also highlights the importance of timing. Joshua didn't rush the process. He and the Israelites followed God's instructions exactly, waiting for the seventh day to complete their task. In a world that values speed and instant results, Joshua's patience is a powerful reminder that success often requires waiting for the right moment. It's a lesson in trusting that the process, no matter how long or strange it seems, is unfolding exactly as it should. The story of Jericho isn't just about a city's walls crumbling, it's about the walls in our own lives. Whether those walls are fears, doubts, or external obstacles, Joshua's faith teaches us that they can fall. It won't always make sense, and it won't always happen on our timeline, but if we persist in faith and follow the guidance we're given, those walls will eventually come down. After the conquest of the Promised Land, Joshua's role as a leader shifted from warrior to administrator. The task at hand wasn't just about winning battles. It was about ensuring that every tribe received their fair share of the land. Joshua oversaw this process with the same level of integrity and faith that had guided him in battle. It wasn't an easy job. Managing the expectations and needs of 12 different tribes required wisdom and patience. But Joshua knew that this moment was about more than just land. It was about fulfilling God's promises to his people. Joshua's approach to distributing the land teaches us about fairness and responsibility. He could have easily favored certain tribes or taken a larger portion for himself, but he didn't. Instead, he made sure that the division was equitable, with each tribe receiving what had been promised to them. This is a valuable lesson in leadership. True leaders don't seek to enrich themselves at the expense of others. They work to ensure that everyone is taken care of, even when the process is challenging. Think about the times in your own life when you've had to make decisions that affected others. Have you led with fairness, or have personal interests sometimes taken precedence? Joshua's ability to distribute the land fairly also reflects his deep understanding of God's promises. He knew that this wasn't just a matter of dividing territory. It was about honoring the covenant that God had made with the Israelites. This reminds us that leadership isn't just about managing resources. It's about stewarding them in a way that aligns with a higher purpose. In your own life, consider the resources you've been entrusted with, whether they be financial, relational, or spiritual. How are you managing them? Are you using them in a way that honors the greater good, or are you more focused on personal gain? One of the most significant aspects of Joshua's leadership during this time was his ability to manage conflict. With so many tribes involved, there were bound to be disagreements over land. But Joshua didn't let these conflicts spiral out of control. He listened, mediated, and made decisions that kept the peace. This is a critical skill in any leadership position, knowing how to navigate disputes without causing division. Joshua's example teaches us that maintaining unity is often more important than winning an argument. In your own relationships or leadership roles, how do you handle conflict? Are you focused on resolution, or do you sometimes get caught up in proving a point? The distribution of the land also highlights the importance of trust. The tribes had to trust Joshua's decisions, even if they didn't fully understand or agree with them. This level of trust didn't happen overnight. It was built over years of watching Joshua lead with integrity and faith. This is a reminder that trust is something earned, not demanded. Whether you're in a leadership role or simply navigating relationships, consider how you're building trust with those around you. Are you consistent in your actions? Do you lead by example like Joshua, showing that you can be relied upon when it matters most? Another valuable lesson from Joshua's distribution of the land is the importance of long-term vision. Joshua wasn't just thinking about the immediate needs of the tribes. He was thinking about the future generations that would inhabit the land. His decisions weren't just about what was fair in the moment. They were about ensuring that the Israelites could thrive for years to come. This is a powerful reminder for all of us to think beyond the present when making decisions. How often do we get caught up in short-term gains, forgetting the long-term impact of our choices? Joshua's faith played a crucial role in this process. He didn't rely on his own understanding to make decisions about the land. He sought God's guidance every step of the way. This teaches us the importance of bringing faith into our decision-making processes, especially when those decisions affect others. Whether in your personal life, career, or community, asking for divine guidance can help you make choices that are not only wise but also aligned with a greater purpose. Joshua's reliance on God is a reminder that true wisdom comes from understanding that we don't have all the answers. As Joshua divided the land, he also made sure to remind the Israelites of the covenant they had with God. This wasn't just about property. It was about their relationship with God and their responsibility to uphold the laws and values he had given them. Joshua's leadership wasn't just practical. It was deeply spiritual. He knew that the success of the Israelites wasn't just about the land they owned, but about the faith they lived by. This is a lesson we can all take to heart. Success in life isn't just about what we achieve materially. It's about how we live out our values and faith along the way. The process of distributing the land marked the fulfillment of a long-awaited promise, but Joshua's work was far from over. He knew that maintaining unity among the tribes and keeping their focus on God's plan would require continued leadership and guidance. Joshua's life left a legacy that continued to inspire long after his leadership ended. His story is a testament to the power of faith and obedience, showing that one person's unwavering trust in God can impact generations. Joshua didn't just lead the Israelites into the promised land. He laid the foundation for their future. His leadership was rooted in the understanding that success wasn't just about winning battles, but about living in alignment with God's will. This lesson extends far beyond his time, offering us a blueprint for how to live lives that leave a lasting impact. Joshua's legacy wasn't built on fame or fortune, but on his deep connection to God and his people. He didn't seek glory for himself. Instead, he focused on fulfilling the promises God had made to Israel. This selflessness is something that resonates with us today. In a world where personal success is often prioritized over the well-being of others, Joshua's life reminds us that true leadership is about service. It's about lifting others up and ensuring that the values you stand for outlast your own time. How often do we think about the legacy we're building? Are we focused on leaving behind material success, or are we investing in the things that truly matter? One of the most profound aspects of Joshua's legacy is the way he inspired others to follow God's will. His life was a living example of faith in action, and this faith had a ripple effect on the generations that came after him. Joshua didn't just tell others to trust in God. He showed them how to do it through his own actions. This kind of leadership is rare, but it's also incredibly powerful. Think about the people in your own life who have inspired you. Were they the ones who simply gave advice, or were they the ones who lived out their beliefs in a way that made you want to do the same? Joshua's story also teaches us that leaving a lasting legacy doesn't require perfection. He wasn't without flaws, but his heart was always in the right place. His obedience to God, even in difficult circumstances, is what defined his life. This is a comforting thought for anyone who feels the pressure to get everything right. Joshua's legacy wasn't about being perfect, it was about being faithful. And that's something we can all strive for. In your own journey, consider how you can leave a mark on the world, not by striving for perfection, but by staying true to your values and trusting in a greater plan. Another key element of Joshua's legacy is the way he empowered others. He didn't hold on to power for the sake of control. Instead, he prepared the Israelites for a future without him. This is a sign of true leadership, knowing when to step back and allow others to rise. Joshua wasn't threatened by the idea of others stepping into leadership roles. He understood that his purpose wasn't to lead forever, but to ensure that the people of Israel were equipped to carry on after he was gone. In our own lives, this is a reminder that part of our legacy is in how we prepare others to succeed after us. Joshua's impact didn't end with his death. It continued through the lives of those he led. His influence can be seen in the faithfulness of the Israelites who followed his example, even after he was gone. This long-lasting influence is something we all have the potential to achieve. Whether through our families, communities, or work, the values we live by can shape the future in ways we may never fully realize. Joshua's story challenges us to think beyond our own lifetime and to consider how our actions today can impact the generations that follow. His life also highlights the importance of obedience to God's plan. Joshua's legacy wasn't just about his leadership skills. It was about his willingness to follow divine guidance, even when it was difficult or didn't make sense. This teaches us that sometimes, the legacy we leave isn't something we build with our own hands. It's something that comes from following a higher calling. In your own life, think about the moments where you've had to trust in something bigger than yourself. What would happen if you committed to living in alignment with that purpose, even when it's challenging? Joshua's legacy is also a reminder that faith and action go hand in hand. He didn't just pray for God's will to be done, he took steps to make it happen. His life shows us that while faith is essential, it's not enough on its own. We must also act on that faith, trusting that our efforts, combined with divine guidance, can bring about great things. This balance between faith and action is what made Joshua such a powerful leader, and it's a lesson we can all apply in our own lives. Even today, Joshua's legacy continues to inspire. His story is one of courage, faith, and perseverance, but it's also a story of humility and service. He didn't seek to build a kingdom for himself. He sought to fulfill God's promises for his people. This is a powerful reminder that the most enduring legacies aren't the ones built on personal success. They're the ones built on faithfulness and service to others. As Joshua neared the end of his life, he delivered a farewell address to the Israelites, a powerful speech that echoed the wisdom and faith that had defined his leadership. In this address, Joshua didn't focus on his accomplishments or victories. Instead, he reminded the people of Israel about their covenant with God. His words were not only a reflection on the past, but also a call to action for the future. Joshua's farewell wasn't just about looking back. It was about urging the Israelites to remain faithful to God as they moved forward. He knew that the battles they had fought were just the beginning and that their true test would be in how they lived out their faith in the days to come. Joshua's message was clear. Obedience to God wasn't a one-time decision. It was a daily commitment. He warned the Israelites of the dangers of turning away from God and urged them to continue following his commandments. In today's terms, it's like receiving advice from a mentor who has seen it all. Joshua wasn't speaking from theory. He had lived through the struggles, the victories, and the temptations. His words were a reminder that the journey of faith doesn't end after a victory. Instead, it requires constant dedication. This is a lesson that resonates today. How often do we reach a goal only to lose sight of what matters most afterward? What's remarkable about Joshua's farewell is his focus on choice. He famously declared, "Choose this day whom you will serve," making it clear that faith is a decision each person must make for themselves. Joshua wasn't forcing anyone to follow God. He was simply presenting the choice and leading by example. His declaration, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord," remains one of the most powerful statements of faith in the Bible. It's a reminder that, at the end of the day, the path you walk is yours to choose. Joshua's words challenge us to consider, who or what are we truly serving in our lives? In his final encouragements, Joshua also emphasized the importance of unity among the tribes of Israel. He knew that division could weaken the nation and lead them away from God's purpose. His plea for unity was more than just a political statement. It was a spiritual one. Joshua understood that a divided people would struggle to fulfill God's promises. In our own lives, this is a reminder of the importance of community and staying connected to those who share your values and faith. Unity, both in family and faith, is a powerful force that can help us stay on the right path. Joshua's farewell also reflected his deep understanding of human nature. He recognized that even after all they had seen and experienced, the Israelites might still be tempted to turn away from God. His warnings weren't just about external enemies. They were about the internal struggles that we all face: doubt, complacency, and the lure of easier paths. Joshua's wisdom reminds us that faith requires vigilance. It's not enough to have faith in the good times. We must remain faithful when things get tough, when the world offers seemingly easier solutions. One of the most impactful parts of Joshua's farewell was his reminder of God's faithfulness throughout their journey. He recounted how God had delivered them from Egypt, guided them through the wilderness, and fulfilled his promise by giving them the promised land. Joshua's reflections weren't just a history lesson. They were a reminder that God's faithfulness in the past is a guarantee of his faithfulness in the future. This is something we can hold on to in our own lives. When we look back at how far we've come, we can see that God has been with us every step of the way, and that gives us the strength to keep going. In his final moments as a leader, Joshua left the Israelites with a choice: to follow God or to go their own way. But he didn't leave them without hope. He had shown them through his life what it looked like to follow God with faith, courage, and obedience. Joshua's legacy was not just in the victories he won, but in the example he set for future generations. His final address was a challenge, but it was also an invitation to live a life of faith, just as he had done. His words continue to inspire us today, reminding us that the choices we make now will shape our legacy. Joshua's farewell wasn't just the end of his story. It was the beginning of a new chapter for the Israelites. As he stepped back from leadership, he left them with the tools and guidance they needed to continue walking in faith. His departure was a reminder that true leadership isn't about holding on to power. It's about preparing others to lead themselves. This is a valuable lesson for anyone in a position of influence. Joshua's final words were not about his own legacy, but about the future of his people and their relationship with God. The death of Joshua marked the end of an era, but it didn't mark the end of his influence. His leadership, faith, and the example he set lived on through the generations that followed. Joshua's passing wasn't just the end of his physical life. It was the beginning of a new chapter for the Israelites, one that would be shaped by the principles he had instilled in them. His legacy was about more than the battles he won or the land he helped conquer. It was about the faith he inspired in others. Even after his death, the Israelites continued to draw from the strength and guidance Joshua had imparted during his life. Joshua's death serves as a powerful reminder that true leadership isn't about being irreplaceable. It's about empowering others to carry on after you're gone. He didn't cling to power or seek to make himself indispensable. Instead, he focused on preparing the people to continue their journey without him. This is a lesson that applies to all of us, whether we're leading in our families, workplaces, or communities. Are we building something that can continue after we're gone, or are we making ourselves the center of everything? Joshua's life shows us that the best leaders are the ones who build a legacy that outlives them. As the Israelites moved forward without Joshua, they faced new challenges, but they had the foundation he had laid to guide them. His teachings, his faith, and his example didn't disappear with his death. They became the foundation on which the Israelites would build their future. Joshua's death reminds us that our actions, decisions, and values live on long after we're gone. Whether we realize it or not, we are all building legacies every day. The question is, what kind of legacy are we building? Joshua's story challenges us to think beyond ourselves and to consider how our lives will impact those who come after us. Even after his death, Joshua's influence was felt in the way the Israelites continued to follow God's commandments. For a time, they remained faithful to the covenant, guided by the lessons Joshua had imparted to them. This continued obedience was a testament to the strength of Joshua's leadership and the depth of his faith. He had not only led them to physical victories, but had also instilled in them a spiritual foundation that would carry them through the challenges ahead. Joshua's death didn't bring an end to his mission. It solidified the values and faith he had fought to instill. Joshua's passing also teaches us about the inevitability of change and the importance of succession. Leadership is not meant to be a lifetime position. Joshua understood that his role was temporary, and he accepted it with grace, knowing that his work wasn't about his own glory but about God's plan for his people. This perspective can be applied in many areas of life, whether in business, ministry, or personal leadership roles. There comes a time when we must step aside and allow others to lead, trusting that the foundation we've laid will continue to support those who come after us. The Israelites' journey after Joshua's death wasn't without its difficulties. They faced temptations, distractions, and challenges that tested their faith. But Joshua's example continued to guide them, at least for a time. His death serves as a reminder that no leader can prevent all future difficulties, but they can prepare their people to face those challenges with faith and courage. Joshua's legacy wasn't just about the victories won during his lifetime. It was about the character he helped shape in the people he led. Even in his absence, his teachings remained a source of strength. One of the most profound lessons from Joshua's death is the way it forces us to confront our own mortality and the legacies we are leaving behind. Joshua's life challenges us to think beyond our own lifetimes. What will people say about us after we're gone? Will we be remembered for our achievements, or will we be remembered for the impact we had on others? Joshua's legacy was built on his faithfulness to God and his dedication to his people. It's a reminder that the most important things we leave behind are not material. They are spiritual and relational. In your own life, consider how you are living out the principles Joshua exemplified. Are you focused on building something that will last? Are you empowering others to carry on the work after you're gone? Joshua's story challenges us to think about the long-term impact of our decisions and the values we pass on to others. It's not just about what we accomplish during our lifetime. It's about how we prepare the next generation to continue walking in faith. Joshua's death was not the end of his story, but a continuation of his influence. His life reminds us that the legacy we leave behind is shaped by the faith, courage, and dedication we live out every day. Now that you've explored the incredible journey of Joshua, the question remains, what will you do with this knowledge? Joshua's life was a testament to the power of faith, courage, and obedience. But it's not enough to simply admire his story. The real challenge is applying these lessons in your own life. Are you ready to face your own walls, the ones that seem impossible to break down? Have you considered what it would look like to trust in a greater plan, even when the path seems unclear? Joshua's legacy teaches us that victory doesn't always come through strength alone, but through unwavering belief and persistence. So, how will you rise to the occasion in your own journey? What steps can you take today to live with the same level of purpose and faith that Joshua did? Maybe it's time to step out in faith, make bold decisions, or lead with both strength and compassion in your life. Whatever your next move is, Joshua's story shows that great things happen when you commit to trusting the process. If you found value in these lessons and want to continue growing in your journey, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. There's so much more to learn about faith, leadership, and living a life of purpose. Let's continue this journey together. Don't miss out on what's coming next.